Hi, good morning. I am just checking to make sure we are live. Let's see. This is awesome. Well, welcome to my office. Welcome to our very first Intentional Steps Leadership live stream. I'm so excited that you're here. We just had about 8 minutes of navigating technology, making sure that we have everything set up. This is definitely a new process for me. That's the one thing about running a nonprofit is that you end up learning how to be a jack of all trades, including managing technology. So glad to be here. So grateful for the opportunity to share with each of you. I'm not sure exactly where you're tuning in from, but we're going to try this live stream because what we would like to do is have a kind of a way to record and track some of the classes that we teach, some of the information that we're sharing, and so that people around the world can come back and watch some of these videos and, review it, share it with their groups. Recently, I traveled to Uganda, and it was an incredible, life-changing trip. And so we're starting this live stream for our partners in Uganda to be able to connect with us and share this information with their groups and with their programs. So, welcome. Again, very grateful that you're here. Very excited to be sharing this information with you, and grateful that you're patient enough with me to walk through me trying to navigate all of the technology. So this is awesome. I have to thank my son. He is, just take a moment to thank him because he's the one who has made me bold enough to learn all of this. He's the one who set up all of the software for me on my computer, and he left it. He was like, Mom, just don't touch it. And when you come in, click this button and click that button, and you'll be fine. So, Ryland, thank you. Thank you for believing in your mom. Yes, we're learning. We're learning together. So, all right. Well, let's dive into today's lesson. So, last week in our closed Zoom call, we had our leadership Zoom call, and we talked about the importance of stewardship and what stewardship means to each of us within our programs. When you have the gifts, the talents, the investments, the donations, the different opportunities to serve, it falls on your shoulders then to take a proactive step in stewarding the gifts and the provisions that have been granted to you. And that's a very, I believe, sacred process that if God entrusts something, if your higher power entrusts something to you, that now that is your talents to navigate, manage, and maintain. And in the nonprofit world and in programming and in working with mental health, it's so much deeper because we really have the opportunity to impact people's lives in a way that's not just a short-term effect, but really has the potential to have long-term, lasting efforts, both for good and could also harm them. So it's very important that we take the concept of stewardship within our programs it's one of the highest things I believe that we can do. So we talked last week about what that means to be a good steward of the blessings, good steward of the opportunities, good steward of the lives of the people that are entrusted to you in this journey. And we also talked about the importance of the first steps in programming, which is aligning and setting up an assessment process. And we discussed the three important steps to developing a good assessment, and that's the who, the how, and the where. So, who are you going to assess? What is your program target? Who are the people that you really want to evaluate the process for? You want to work with? You want to see where are they at and where are they going? And if your program is effective in helping them get to where they want to be. Then how are you going to administer this assessment? How are you going to ask the questions? How are you going to collect the data? How are you going to store the data? And then where? Where will you implement this assessment? Where will you ask these questions? Because all of those things really they really matter, right? If you were doing an assessment in a public space, but you were asking very personal and vulnerable questions, that might not give you the same results as if you were asking those questions in a more vulnerable and secure location where people wouldn't be worried about, their personal business being exposed, or they would feel safer. So, we talked in great depth about designing assessments that were specific to your program and that you would be able to consider the who, the where, and the how. So today, I wanted to get a little bit deeper into the thought processes around each program design and really begin unpacking what that looks like in each individual program. Now, the Nichols Center, we are what I like to call a multidisciplinary team model. And that means that we have individuals like myself who have a higher level of licensing and a lot of certifications and education that give us the ability to do very high level clinical work, high level assessing, evaluations, and writing, some pretty significant reports on people's mental health. But then we also, as part of our team, truly value people who have what we call lived experience. And those people, they have, through their daily lives and their daily practices, learned how to manage the traumas, the struggles, the clinical diagnoses, the substance use disorders. They've learned how to walk with these traumas that are in their life and live in a state of wellness and recovery. And those peers, those people with lived experience who know what it feels like to be on the other side of that, that illness struggle or that diagnosis, those people add great value to the empathic process of working with people in trauma. They have, because of their exposure to trauma, because of the things that they've walked through, because of some of the, the life experiences they've had, they are able to sit with people in dark places and say, I've been there. I know how that feels. And I know that it's hard to have a voice. And I will advocate and be a voice for you in these spaces. And because we take a model of clinical, high-level programming, and we incorporate people with lived experience who can champion and cheerlead alongside our clients, we truly have a stronger team. We add in another layer to our program. We add in the family. We believe that the family unit is stronger together. And so we don't just take the one person within the family unit that might be struggling with depression, trauma, a substance use disorder, eating disorder, whatever their challenge is, and work to create a plan just for them alone. We also incorporate how this might be impacting their family and how the system within the family might be contributing to some of the struggles that this person is facing. And how can we strengthen that family connection and that unity within the home so that that person has a truly safe place to live and to heal. And then Yet we add a fourth layer, and that is our community advocacy piece. When we have a person who might need some strong clinical direction, treatment level care, community-based therapeutic intervention, we add in that peer support. We add in a family model where we're implementing strategies across the family. Then we bring in community advocates, advocates that will support these individuals and represent them, whether they are dealing with struggles within the school system, whether they're dealing with a learning disability, whether they are having, impacts from the social systems that might create barriers to them thriving within their community. And we believe that clinical spaces should be applied to community places, right? Because we don't live in a vacuum. We don't, exist without the community around us, without the people and the systems and the structures around us that both support us but also present different issues that we then now have to navigate. And this is a really critical process to mental health and wellness, is having a social system that supports access to care. Now, going over each part of our program should give you some ideas of how you can build out strategies within your program. Now, if your program is within a community with a very robust social system, having community advocates is going to be an important part to help your individuals really begin accessing resources within your community. But if your community is more rural and does not have a lot of social supports, then having a community advocate or partner program that can help build social supports is going to be a focus that would probably be better. These are the questions that when you're designing your program and you're beginning to build out assessments for the who and the how and the where, you need to start thinking about what assessments should I be looking for my community and for my program. So what are the things that you want to measure? What are the things that you want to have the greatest impact for? And what are the things that you wish to see in your community in 5, 10, maybe even 15 years from now? Because these are the questions that you should be planning today. There's a great quote that says, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. And so here we are today, and whether you're watching this from Uganda or from America or even from up the road, you need to be thinking about where are we at today and where do we want to be in 15, 20 years from now. The Nichols Center was founded in 2013. We have been working tirelessly in Douglas County for almost 13 years. And it's incredible to think about, because I remember those early days when I didn't even know what to do to take my next steps. I had never hosted a fundraiser. I had never held a 5K or a community event. I remember a time when I had never even public. And now here we are almost 13 years later, and our organization has a full team, and we're working in spaces across the state of Georgia, crossing into Florida, and now doing international work. And today is the first day that I can say I'm hosting a live stream. I had never done that until today. And so sometimes you're going to have moments in designing and developing your program where you're going to do things that you've never done before. And you're going to say, oh my goodness, I've never done this. How do I take this step? It's terrifying sometimes. And then you're going to look back and go, man, I'm so glad 13 years ago I was brave enough to take that step. So the best time to plant a tree is when you can say, man, I'm so glad that I planted that tree 20 years ago. And the second best time is right now. So let's dive in a little bit to community assessments. Community assessments look like an honest picture of what kind of community you live in, what kind of work you want to do in that community, and what are some of the real struggles your community is facing. Here in Georgia, across the state of Georgia, the Nichols Center has been working to build the Community Collaborative for Crisis Response. We have strategically, our communities are facing many crises. Crisis for mental health, crisis for suicide, crisis for substance use disorder, and crisis for opioid overdose. Due to the challenges that communities have faced with the fentanyl that is being laced into so many substances, not just drugs, but also some of these experimental substances that young people even have gotten access to. They're hanging out with friends. The friend says, here, take this, here, drink this, here, do this. And whatever it is being laced with a poison that is killing them. And so that's a really big issue here in the U.S. And it has, it's one thing when you know that you're doing a substance and you know what the substance is and you can make an educated guess at the level of risk you're taking with your life. It's another thing when you're taking something and you really don't know what's in it. And you're being told that substance, that drug, is this, and it come to find out that's not true, and so it really is this great deception that our young people and even some of the individuals who they live with self-medication, they're facing this challenge of fentanyl exposure every time that they are taking a substance. They could be at risk. If they know that it's not prescribed by a doctor, they could be at risk. But there's also an epidemic of loneliness in our communities. Our communities, we are so isolated through technology. And technology is wonderful. It's challenging for me sometimes, but it's a wonderful gift when it's used appropriately. But many times technology can be the thing that separates us, right? It can bring us together, but it can also be a really big challenge. And so that separation that comes through I don't have to go see my friends. I can just call them. I can just text them. I can just jump online. I can just, instead of calling them, I can look on their social media and still feel connected. But the reality is long ago, we didn't do that. We just went and visited our friends and had that human-to-human interaction. And now we don't. We don't take the time to sit with our friends in those spaces and prioritize that human connection. So these things have created a lot of emotional breaks in our social structure and our social network. When I was in Uganda, some of the best moments for me were taking time to sit around a table with people I was getting to know, people I had interacted with on the trip, people I had known from before the trip, and just visiting with them, asking questions about their lives, connecting with them, learning to really be vulnerable and share some things that I had felt, struggled with, or even enjoyed. Both the happy and the sad moments, laughing together, and being in a space where you actually can have that human-to-human connection is truly healing for the soul. And so these are some of the challenges here in the U.S. even that we face, where we're so busy, we're so disconnected because of technology, and we're so burdened with our own level of stress that we forget to sit in those spaces with each other. And that's creating a crisis that some of our communities do not know how to handle. They don't know how to make a meaningful impact on. We launch more podcasts and create more content and talk about it. But how are we really leaning into the problem where we're bringing people together? And there's within each community a different level of crisis. So some groups and some communities, they have higher rates of suicide. Some of them will have higher rates of substance use disorder. Some of them will have loneliness in younger age groups, whereas other communities, they have a higher population of elderly. And this is really important information for you to understand when you're designing your program, because you're going to want to know whether your community is struggling with a particular type of crisis or if it's just across the board. That's going to help you design the different prevention programming that your specific group will want to tackle. So doing a community assessment is a critical step, okay? And you're going to want to know, who do I want to make the biggest impact for? Why do I believe this impact is actually going to benefit my community? And how will I measure the success of my program? So take a few moments, get out a piece of paper, and just start drawing up the answers to those questions, okay? Who do I want to make the biggest impact for? How do I want to measure this? And how will I know that I'm actually succeeding? 13 years ago when the Nichols Center started, there wasn't a space for families to come and talk about what they were struggling with. There wasn't a lot of community resources. We have some great churches. We have some great AA programs, the Alcohol Anonymous, or even the Crystal Meth Anonymous, or what is the word? NA. Gosh, I forget. But we had a lot of great 12-step programs. We had a lot of great individuals that cared, but we were missing a lot of those resources where families could access mental health support, substance use recovery support, and advocate for people to access treatment. And so we founded the Nichols Center specifically to address that issue. Where could families go? Where could they walk in, feel loved on, feel accepted, talk about what they were struggling with, and begin having doors open to them? Not saying, oh, well, you don't qualify because you don't have insurance. Oh, well, if you have $10,000, then you can enter our program. Or, oh, well, if you wait 6 months, then maybe we'll have an opening. You know, those answers, those barriers to treatment, people were facing that every day. They knew they were struggling. They knew their family member was suffering. But when they tried to get help, one by one, it was, no, you don't have the insurance. No, you don't have the money. No, you have to wait. You don't fit the criteria. And so the Nichols Center our team has served as a way to begin identifying those barriers and finding resources that support to go around those barriers so that the family can still get help. Because we want to keep our families together. We want to help them feel connected and supported. That was the assessment we were doing, was what were the natural resources in the community? What could we do to support families? And how many barriers are there? And there were a lot. And then how did we propose to find a way through or around those barriers? And we started designing individualized treatment plans, individualized resource plans for each of the families as they came through our program. We found that sometimes people were dealing with depression, but they were also dealing with an insecurity of access to food, insecurities and access to housing. They needed more job opportunities, they needed more financial support, and that we could impact their level of depression if we were also able to give them access to sustainable food, sustainable housing, and other resources to help elevate them out of a level of poverty. And by working to bring resources, we were also improving their level of depression. And this was a really important thing because as a community, you can go to get therapy, but if you are hungry at the end of the day, then you can really only think about the great information you learn in therapy for so long before you're really thinking about how hungry you are. So we wanted to make sure that families had a full wraparound support service. Now, as a program, even though I try to do all the things, programs can't do all the things. We weren't successful in trying to do a one-stop shop where, in one room we had food, in one room we had clothing, in one room we had, job resources. We tried that, but it was very hard to uphold that model. So we built community networks of care. By aligning strategic partners, we were able to build out a connection point for our families and do what we like to call a warm handoff. And that is where we identify what the family needs. We call our friends up the road and we say, hey, friend, you do a food bank. You have a thrift store. You have clothing. You have job placement. We're going to send our family to you to get support. And then through the work of C3R, we have a monthly meeting as a community to bring everyone together to the table and address how is it going? Are the resource referrals working? How are our families moving through the system? What is the current data? How is the community being impacted? And we have these honest, sometimes gut-wrenching conversations about the health and well-being of our community. This is how we've chosen to organically navigate these different layers of crisis response. And this is something any community can replicate. The first thing you need to do, though, is to align the assessment piece of where is your community at, what is it you think you can do, and who's going to be on your team to help you accomplish it. And so in today's live stream, I felt the greatest thing that I could do to steward the time, the blessing that we have to be together, is to walk you through really understanding why we're doing these assessments, both on a client basis, but also on a program basis and in a community. It is very important that you take the time to really lay out this plan well. Now, I'm a doer. I like to just jump in and do things. But this planning piece is so important to laying out that roadmap. It really will help you design the first few steps you want to take. Some programs, they're going to feel more comfortable with picking a model. And there's lots of great research about different models for different communities. There's the model of a living room model. There is an RCO, Recovery Community Organization. There are different models that you can research for your nonprofit or for your church program or for your school program that are what's considered evidence-based. In our authentic journey, we didn't have a local model that was similar to what we wanted to try to do to replicate. So we kind of struck out on our own. And what I found is that by taking pieces and programs from different models and blending it together into a multidisciplinary team has truly been the greatest impact for our community and the families that we support. It's a lot harder to branch out on your own and to start building a new and unique idea to programming, because you really spend a lot of time just thinking through the different challenges, identifying funding and sustainability, learning how to write things from scratch and walk in these spaces. But you don't have to do it the way we have. you can pick a model. You can do the research and say, you know what, I really like this particular program, and I want to try to do this program in my community because it fits my mission, my values, and the impact I want to see. And that could be an easier part of the process for you. So if that's where you're at and you're like, I don't want to think about it from scratch, I certainly can send you some resources. We can put some resources available to you on our website so that you can start looking at some of the other models that different communities have applied. The Nichols Center, we are going to be working this year with an evaluation team that really shows the evidence and the proof that our model, our unique blended multidisciplinary approach with clinical services applied to community spaces using culturally adaptive care practices, is truly an incredible gift to our community and to the communities that we work in. So, I'm excited to share that journey with you. I've never done an evaluation process. Again, I like to do new things. I like to learn new practices and new processes. So this is exciting for me. But if that's not exciting for you, I definitely encourage you to do some research on what some other communities are doing as well. So look into that and see what's right for you and what's right for your program. And then we can start doing that assessment piece. If you're following someone else's model, you're going to want to use the assessments that are laid out in that model. If you're creating your own, you're going to want to spend a lot of time identifying your assessment practice, the who, what, when, where, and how. How are you going to implement this? Where are you going to perform these assessments? Where are you going to perform this work? Where are you going to store your data? Who are you going to impact? How are you going to impact them? How are you going to walk this journey? This is exciting work. This is work to lean into, and then begin laying out that plan. Now, I'm going to close out our live stream today with just this immense amount of gratitude that I have. Thank you for joining. Thank you for walking through with us our very first live stream. I'm excited about this. We do have a website and an app. So all of this information is going to be listed in our group pages on our website. Our website is www.nicholscenter.org. I will put all the information in this chat. You should be able to access it through this video or other videos on our YouTube. We would like you to like and subscribe and share this YouTube channel with your different providers, your different programs, your different family members, the people that you're working with, your clients, anyone that you feel like would benefit from watching the resources and information. Also, you can share our website. We'll be building out different groups and pages there. We do have an app that is downloadable. It makes things from our website a little bit easier to navigate. If you have an Apple phone or an Android, we have it in both the Apple Store and the iOS Store. So go on there, download our app, and then join the groups that you feel like are right for you. If you're interested in the Community Collaborative for Crisis Response, we have a separate group for C3R and Resilient Response, which is really building resiliency practices and trauma-informed practices across communities and helping to address the different levels of crisis each community is facing and how to apply the strategic prevention framework to every community. So that's a wonderful group. We're going to be sharing educational information. We're going to be sharing our links to the different YouTubes, to the different groups, the different Zoom calls that are going to be there in that group on our website. But also we'll be building out some other groups, how to volunteer at the center, how to access groups and classes for therapy, and then this international group if you are across the pond or in another country or in a beautiful, wonderful place like my friends in Uganda. So I'm very excited that you're walking this journey with us. Please like, subscribe, share, follow, share the information. Together we grow stronger. Together, we grow more resilient. Together, we grow And I'm so grateful for this. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. I'm probably going to make somebody else watch the replay and tell me if this was helpful. Please comment and tell me that this was helpful. If this was not helpful, send me some suggestions of what you would like to learn about. What would you like to hear? And you can comment on the YouTube, or you can get on our app and send us some communication through our app or through our website. We'd love to hear from you. If you join the group, you can even comment and post in the group to keep this conversation going. So we love what we do here at the Nichols Center, and we're so glad that you've logged on to do this with us to help make an impact for mental health and recovery support across the world. So thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.